Welcome back to Enter Med School. This is Leo. Today we're doing anemias. Done simple. Notice this playground isn't bright, healthy red. It's kind of pale and washed out. That's anemia in one sentence. Too few healthy red blood cells and slash or not enough hemoglobin. So your blood can't carry oxygen like it's supposed to. And over on the left wall, why is there a dog? Because we're going to start with the tiny kid corner of anemias. And that dog's tail is going to matter in a second. This playground has a weird rule. Age to play, 80 to 100. That's not months, it's MCV, mean corpuscular volume in femtoliters. 80 to 100 femtoliters is normocytic, the right-sized kid zone. Under 80 is microcytic, too tiny for this area. Over 100 is macrocytic. Those kids are basically teenagers crashing a daycare. And keep your eye on that missing P in please. We'll come back to that when we hit a certain enzyme deficiency. All right, this tiny red slide is for the microcytic kids. MCV less than 80. These kids are way too young to play in this playground. Microcytic anemia is usually a hemoglobin problem. Either you can't make enough heme or your globin chains are messed up. And here's where the dog's tail comes in. Microcytic anemia loves the mnemonic tail. T for thalassemia, A for anemia of chronic disease, I for iron deficiency, L for lead poisoning. If you remember that dog's tail, you'll remember the microcytic causes. Here comes baby Abby rocking the big A. First, Abby's A can point you to anemia of chronic disease, a heme synthesis problem that can show up microcytic, and often normocytic too. The constant sneezing is your chronic inflammation vibe, ongoing illness, ongoing cytokines, ongoing anemia. Second, Abby also reminds you of thalassemias. These are defective globin chain problems, and they're microcytic. If you want the extra memory spice, alpha thalassemia major can cause hydrops fetalis. So Abby sliding down like a dramatic fetal emergency is your mental bookmark. But the core medical school takeaway is simple. Microcytic plus globin chain issue equals thalassemia. And this is Baby Bob with the big blue for cool. And yes, that's a nod to Cooley's anemia, also known as beta thalassemia major. Again, thalassemias equals defective globin chain, which means microcytic anemia. Now look at his metal xylophone, that's iron. And here's a key medical school point. Iron deficiency starts out normocytic early, but when it gets worse, it becomes microcytic late. So this old, beat-up iron instrument is screaming iron deficiency, late, microcytic territory. But wait, the paint on this old xylophone is ancient. Someone donated some old toys to the playground without knowing that some old paints used to contain lead. That's lead poisoning, another microcytic cause tied to disordered heme synthesis. So Baby Bob's corner hits multiple parts of the microcytic tail: thalassemia, iron deficiency, late, and lead. Now we move into the main playground, the normocytic zone, MCV 80 to 100. In medical school, normocytic anemia is where you use the reticulocyte index as your cheat code. Low reticulocyte index equals the bone marrow isn't making enough RBCs, leads to non-hemolytic causes. High reticulocyte index equals the marrow is trying hard, because RBCs are being destroyed or lost implies hemolytic causes. So for non-hemolytic normocytic, low retics, think iron deficiency early, before it becomes microcytic late, Baby Bob. Anemia of chronic disease, aplastic anemia, chronic kidney disease. Low EPO will lead to low RBC production. Acute blood loss, hemorrhage. You lost RBCs, marrow hasn't caught up yet. These slides look like blood vessels because the next decision is, are cells being made or being destroyed in the circulation? See this beach ball? That's a perfect visual for a sphere, and that's your membrane defect classic, hereditary spherocytosis. In intrinsic hemolytic anemias, one bucket is membrane defects, and the chart wants you to know two. Hereditary spherocytosis, sphere equals ball. Paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, PNH, green color on the ball. Do you see the green urine-like color of the ball? PNH is the nighttime surprise membrane problem. So imagine a kid who suddenly has dark urine episodes at night. Bottom line, the ball can represent an RBC membrane defects, which are intrinsic. The RBC itself is built wrong. So the shape is the reminder of spherocytosis, and the green color is a reminder of PNH. This bin screams, "No plastic." That's aplastic anemia, a bone marrow production failure. And where does it live on our chart? In normocytic, non-hemolytic anemia with a low reticulocyte index. Because if the marrow is shut down, it can't make reticulocytes. So no plastic equals no production. Now, look at the kids outside the vessel slides. This is your hint for extrinsic hemolysis. The RBC is getting destroyed by forces outside the cell. This extrinsic bucket includes autoimmune hemolysis, represented by the kid dressed in white, like immune cells attacking. Microangiopathic hemolysis, represented by tiny damaged vessels shredding RBCs like a hazard course. Macroangiopathic hemolysis, represented by big mechanical destruction. Think prosthetic valves. That's why one kid has that prosthetic clue. Infections represented by the sick kid in the running crowd, because pathogens can wreck RBCs too. And all of these are hemolytic, so they push you toward a high reticulocyte index. The marrow is sprinting to replace what's being destroyed. This kid is literally stuck in the vessel slide, and he's crunched into a weird shape. That's an intrinsic hemolytic clue, a hemoglobinopathy. Two big hemoglobinopathies on the chart. Sickle cell anemia leads to sickled, stiff cells that get stuck. HBC disease leads to another intrinsic hemoglobin variant. Think C-shaped memory hook. So this slide jam kid represents intrinsic hemolysis from abnormal hemoglobin. And here's the enzyme corner, still intrinsic hemolytic. The kid wearing number 6 is G6PD deficiency, an enzyme deficiency that makes RBCs vulnerable. And remember earlier, the sign with the missing P? That's your other intrinsic enzyme deficiency, pyruvate kinase deficiency. So under intrinsic hemolytic enzyme deficiencies, medical school wants two names on lock, G6PD deficiency and pyruvate kinase deficiency. Now the teenagers show up, too big for daycare, because this is macrocytic anemia, MCV greater than 100. First macrocytic branch, megaloblastic, meaning DNA is affected. If DNA synthesis or repair is messed up, the cell can't divide normally, so you get big megacells, hence these huge megaplastic blocks. Looks at the teenagers trying to repair with glue and synthesize their broken huge megaplastic castle with huge plastic parts. All of these are a reminder for DNA synthesis and repair defects leading to megaloblastic anemia. Megaloblastic causes on the chart split into defective DNA synthesis, folate deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency, orotic aciduria, defective DNA repair, Fanconi anemia. So that's why you see both blocks, synthesis/building, and glue/repair, because either the build fails or the repair fails. And finally, macrocytic but non-megaloblastic, meaning the cells are large, but it's not the classic DNA synthesis megaloblast story. This teacher looks yellow and exhausted. Think liver disease and chronic alcohol overuse, two major non-megaloblastic causes. And that giant diamond ring? That's diamond black fan anemia, also listed under macrocytic non-megaloblastic on your chart. So when you see macrocytic anemia in medical school, your first fork is megaloblastic, DNA synthesis/repair, folate, B12, orotic aciduria, Fanconi, to be compared with non-megaloblastic, diamond black fan, liver disease, chronic alcohol. That's it for today. Thank you for joining Enter Med School again. See you next time.